Morning, everyone. Just check that the slides are working. Oh, no. Great. Okay, so hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be back here at Giant again this year. Looks like we've got a great series of talks lined up today. I think I'm definitely one of those people adding to that cough data in East London at the moment, so hopefully the voice holds up for this talk. So today I'm going to be talking about something slightly different, and that's the role of intellectual property in healthcare AI innovation. So I think this is a really important topic for anyone in the audience building or thinking about building AI-powered solutions in healthcare. So to introduce myself, my name is Jack Severs. I'm a UK and European patent attorney. I lead our digital health group at GJE, and I advise health tech companies of all sizes on how to protect their AI innovation. It's clear from speaking to my clients and also through the work I do advising accelerators and incubators that I think people recognize the value of IP, but there are a lot of misconceptions out there, and I hope to address some of those today. So I firstly wanted to show this graph, which shows the number of European patent applications being filed for AI in health. Firstly, because it addresses one of those main misconceptions, which is that you can't file patent applications for AI technology. It's clear you can, and they're being filed in large numbers. It also shows just the rate of innovation in this field and some of the main application areas like diagnosis, interface with smart devices, therapy, using and processing medical images to provide diagnoses. But why is IP important? I wanted to include a couple of examples. Both of these are taken from research carried out by economists at the European Patent Office. This first one, economists looked at a large number of SMEs across Europe. They looked at their success in terms of their growth, in terms of revenue, and also their use of IP. And what that showed is that those companies using the IP system were much more likely to be high growth companies. But perhaps more interestingly, those companies using the full suite of IP rights, so with a coherent IP strategy, using multiple different types of IP rights, that effect was more pronounced, and they were much more likely to be these high growth companies. A second example from some more recent research, this one looked at startups, their use of the IP system, and their success in obtaining funding. And again, the data showed that those startups that were using the IP system were much more likely to obtain investment, both at seed stage and at early stage subsequent funding rounds. So they're just a couple of illustrations of why IP is important to startups in all fields of technology, but particularly for AI. And I think one of the issues in this sector is that, as I say, there are a lot of misconceptions out there. I was going to pick a few more questions than this to discuss today, but I thought given the time I would just pick the two questions that get asked the most. Can I patent my AI innovation, and is patent protection the right option? So on the first question, can I patent my AI innovation? The short answer is yes. If, firstly, it meets the standard requirements of patentability that any invention has to meet, it needs to be novel, i.e. have at least one new feature over the closest thing that's already out there in the public domain. That's quite a low bar. There's that feature can be, however small, that provides novelty. the second criteria is inventiveness. So what does that mean? It sounds quite subjective, but essentially what it means is that those differences, those novel features, need to solve some kind of problem in an arguably non-obvious way. So that's novelty and inventive step. The third requirement is where all of the misconception centers, and that's the fact that the problem that is solved needs to be considered technical. What does that mean? Essentially, it just means a field that's not excluded from patentability. And I think the best way to illustrate this, and really the only way to illustrate it, is with some examples from AI, health tech, innovation, and different application areas. So I think this is by no means exhaustive, but it certainly covers off some of the applications that arise most frequently. So the positive for innovators in this space is that the patent offices look on, solving problems in the medical and health tech space very favorably. So, for example, the use of machine learning on patient data to provide a diagnosis or some kind of clinical output, that is an application that's considered technical and patent eligible. Anywhere where the AI interfaces with hardware, with sensors, to control the hardware, to receive some kind of input from hardware, where there's that interface, there's likely to be patent eligible material. Processing and analyzing different types of data, image, audio, physiological data, and medical simulations. These are all categories that are likely to be considered patent eligible. In terms of non-patent eligible applications, I'd say the one that comes up the most is where the problem is really administrative rather than clinical. So improved scheduling of surgeries, applying AI to determine the required staffing levels in a hospital, providing a new app that facilitates communication between different parts of the hospital or different clinicians. Those are all seen as administrative rather than technical, clinical problems. And so if you're applying AI in that area, it's going to be more challenging to obtain patent protection. The UK and European patent offices also, there's some case law around processing text data, which is relevant to LLMs. So applying LLMs in some areas is going to be more challenging to protect, although as I'm going to discuss and show an example later on, it is possible to protect the application of LLMs for certain applications. And mathematical methods. This is generally where you try and claim a new machine learning approach too broadly. It's not limited to a specific type of data or a specific application. You can't get protection for maths, basically. So if you just try and protect a mathematical method too broadly, you're going to run into issues. So for those of you kind of trying to think about patentability, trying to assess your own technology, here are some indicators to think about. As I say, I think that first bullet point captures a lot of the use cases that I see. Are you solving a medical or clinical problem, or are you applying AI, perhaps in a health context, but solving an administrative problem? That is the kind of key divide that I see come up a lot. It doesn't capture everything, but I think that will be relevant to a lot of the applications here today. And as I say, if there's any kind of interface with hardware or sensors, if there's some kind of clinical output, that's likely to be a good indicator of patentability. Now, this second question, I think perhaps doesn't come up quite so much. I often get innovators coming to me saying, okay, investors want to see that we've filed a patent application. We have to file a patent application. But it's really important to ask this second question, whether patent protection is actually the right option. It's quite a basic point, but AI algorithms, AI innovation isn't like hardware. If you develop a new type of syringe, you put it out there on the market, a competitor can just buy one, copy it, and start implementing it. Whereas with AI innovation, if you put your product out there, perhaps it analyzes medical images in the cloud, it provides an output in terms of a risk factor. Would a competitor actually be able to determine how your invention works? And equally, would you ever be able to enforce your patent against a competitor? Would you be able to tell how their technology works? And that distinction means that you really need to question and apply a number of criteria to decide on whether patent protection is the right option, or whether you could instead keep it secret and rely on the law around confidential information. So patent protection has a lot of advantages. It provides up to a 20-year monopoly when you control use of that technology. That's a huge, powerful right. It provides a barrier to entry to competitors, an additional revenue stream if you license your patents. It supports your marketing, seeking investment, positioning of your company as a really kind of innovative company. But as I say, would it actually be possible to enforce? Would you be able to determine whether a competitor is actually using a technology that falls within the scope of your patent? And equally, in filing a patent application, all of which publish after 18 months, are you disclosing valuable information that could otherwise be kept confidential? So I think the key point here is that you need to assess each innovation case by case. Would the features be obvious to a competitor when the product's released? Maybe you can't work out all of the features, but maybe, from using your products, you'd be able to infer what the key features are of your AI innovation, how it works. Would you be able to infer whether a competitor is actually using your patented invention? What is the scope of protection obtainable? So if you've got a lot of novelty, if your innovation is very different to what's gone before, there's the potential to get broad protection, which is going to make it a lot easier to identify whether a competitor is falling within the scope relative to kind of some protection around some specific algorithmic features that are very hard to detect in a competitor device. A really important point is whether you intend to publish results anyway. So a lot of my clients in this space, they want to publish in academic journals. They want to make noise about how what their differentiator is, how their AI innovation works. And so if you're going to publish anyway, then it probably makes sense to get some degree of protection in place. But the key point is you must look at each innovation case by case. So to finish, kind of illustrating with a couple of specific examples based on our clients. So Benevolent AI, obviously applying AI to the full drug discovery pipeline. They've got one of the largest patent portfolios in AI drug discovery, so that means we really understand the patentability around different aspects of AI drug discovery. They, of course, protect the key assets at the end, the drugs they identify or drug candidates, but they also apply this process of deciding whether to go for patent protection or keeping it confidential to key aspects of their methods, their AI methods for identifying new drugs. Novoic, this is the example that I mentioned where it's a patentable application of large language models. Large language models apply to speech to identify conditions such as Alzheimer's. Again, they publish regularly. They want to show that they're at the forefront of innovation in this area, and therefore it makes sense for them to file patent applications, and they've got a growing portfolio across jurisdictions globally. Oxford Heartbeat, they are providing software that simulates the deployment of medical devices like stents, so they can create a model of your vascular structure and simulate the deployment of a device. I wanted to raise this one as simulation is a relatively new area clarified by some recent case law that is patentable. And again, Oxford Heartbeat now have a growing patent portfolio covering this core method and subsequent improvements. So finally on us, GJE, we're pleased that we've been ranked #1 by the FT's listing, in the FT's listing of Europe's leading patent firms for 6 or 7 years now. I think we're the best at advising in this specific area of AI and health tech. We've got a big team of interdisciplinary team of attorneys. As always, we're offering free IP consultations to companies here at Giant, so you can scan this QR code or come and have a chat with us at our exhibition booth, or catch me after the talk. I'll be here for the rest of the day. So thanks very much. Thanks for listening.